Hello everybody, this is the video 1 of module 1, which we're mainly talking about the basics of modeling for SAP 2000. To create a model, the first step is after opening SAP, you need to come here. If you don't have any specific template to use, you can come here and start as a new file. So when you do this, then SAP gives you these options. So there are different options that SAP create for you, either just a blank environment or grid only for beams or 2D trusses, 3D trusses, 3D frame, walls, different template that SAP can create for you. The other thing you need to check before selecting any of them is the units you want to use. That here are different units. You can choose as you want. You can change it later, but generally SAP gives you the option for conversion all the time. So choose which one you are more comfortable with. Currently I'm using kilonewton and meter, and also if there is any default materials that you want to use for some specific countries or regions, they are here, like Europe or China, United States, Italy, India, New Zealand, Russia, Spain, United States, and Vietnam. So I'll keep this one at United States. Again, it's your call based on the country you are living and the units you are more comfortable or material you're more comfortable, you can use. But later on we can change all of them. Even if you miss it, it's not a big deal. We can find a way to change it. Just bear in mind about default units that I will show you how to change it, but sometimes it's not that easy to convert them, especially because you are using evaluation version, so the capabilities are a bit different. Because I want to show you how to draw elements, so I'm just choosing grid only. When I choose this one, SAP asks me some questions. How many grid line I want to draw? What's the space between the grid line? And what's the space between the stories, which is Z direction, and also where is the first grid line location. So the number of grid lines, we can keep it as it is. Maybe change, for example, Y direction to 6 and keep Z to 5. And also the spaces, I can keep Z6, X6, and then say Y 5 meters and Z typical 3 meters. You can change this one, but I'd rather keep this one at the bottom left corner of the grid line, which is 0, 0, 0. Then I press OK. And I can see 4 grids in X direction, 6 grids in Y direction. When it said Y is not aligned with the wall, Y, that means the distance aligned with Y direction is there. So those are 6 grids in this in Y direction, and also 5 in Z direction. If you want to change anything here for the grid line, it's easily, you can simply right click and come here and use edit grid data. So when you come to edit grid data, you can see that here is, you can add a new system. This is the global that you are currently using. You can add a new system. You can add a copy of what you have and do some modification, or you can modify it. So I'll go for modification, and it gives me some options here about the grid lines. You can change the space of some of the grids because they may not be necessarily equal, but you can create your basic template and then you can come here and edit it. So for example, I may change this one to 5, but if I change this one to 5, the other ones wouldn't be changed automatically. So now the grid space here between B and C is 7 meters. If I want to keep it 6, I need to do it manually. I need to, for example, come here and change here to 11 and then change here to 17. If I want to delete any of them, I can simply stay here and then delete it. But again, grid number wouldn't be changed. There is no way to undo it actually for this specific, because you are creating, even Control Z doesn't work. You can change this name to C, and you can add one more. So currently the space between these two grids are 12 meter. Yeah, so let's change this one to 7 meter. So that would be 12. So what will happen when I want to add? SAP always add to the end. What does it do is checking what's the latest space between the grid, and based on that add, increment and create the next one. So because this last space between grids are 7 meter, if I press add here, give me grid D with 19 meters, because following that 7 meter coming here. So you can change this one manually if you want, but this is how SAP works. You can change them to primary or secondary. Sometimes you have a grid number. For example, if I add one more and say change this one to 15 and then this one to 18, so I have a one grid here, and there is a preview here so you can see what's going on. If you change this one to secondary, then SAP doesn't show you the grid number. And also you can change the grid color. For example, if because this is a secondary, you can change the color if you want. It's not necessary, but just showing you. And some also you can see if you want to see the grid number at the end or at the start. So let's keep all of them consistent at the end. And okay, let's just this is the minor thing you can do. And again here you can change with the Z direction. Sometimes ground floor is a bit higher because there are some commercial areas below or anything, and then after that other levels are residential. If it's a building, just residential building, or if it's a industrial building, you may have many other changes and in levels. So you can play with all of them here, and then when you press OK, it's back to here, and then you can press OK. You also, before moving back, you can change the bubble size of this grid line if it's not clear. 1.125 is currently okay. You can make it bigger or smaller. I'll leave it there, and then I'm coming here. You can see the grids change like that. And now let's go for drawing elements. So for drawing elements, when you come to draw, you can see the menu here. So select mode is just your cursor, which is here like an arrow. So this is a select mode. But when you want to draw, you can see the options here for joint, for line, and for area element or shell element. Currently, we're just focusing on this part, and we're not going through the rest. And you can see exactly the same options here is in the left side toolbar. So this is for easy access, and you can use them, which is faster than coming here and click draw all the time. So let's draw some special joints. When you draw a special joint, you can either just put it at the grid line. Why is being picked by grid line? Yes, you can draw it here, but you have no idea of what's the orientation and distance. So to have this joint properly located where you want, you need to use the snap tools, and you need to use these spaces. So the snap tools, I just need to combine some features together because it's very hard to go for one of them without explaining about the others. So snap tools here give you some options to pick some locations. I will draw some elements and then we can try them, but I'm showing you what's happening here. So here the first one is just snapping to points and grid intersection. So if I come here close to this, it's automatically pick these joints. If I come to the grid, it automatically pick the grid. And the other one is snapping to the mid and end point of the elements. So if you have a frame element here currently, then you can pick it up. So I will go back to this one later, but I just wanted to show you how to use this. So here, when you're coming, for example, you may change X to 1 meter. And when you're staying here and click, the joint will be drawn 1 meter far from where you show. You can combine them with X and Y, and this is could be positive or negative. For example, if I put 1 and -1 for Y, then the joint coming somewhere here. If I press, for example, here, the joint coming here. Yep. And the Z is a bit tricky. The reason is, for example, if I put here -1, Just to avoid of confusion, I remove the rest, change it back to 0. If I use -1 here and just, for example, press here, you can see the joint is drawn here. But you can see it in the plan, even you can click on it. But literally when you click, you're not clicking on the joint, you're clicking on the grid line above. If you have a look at the right side view, which is 3D, you can see where I'm selecting the location. So if I, for example, wants to draw a line, which is the next option I want to discuss with you, if I draw a line from here to here, this line is above, this line is not connected to this. If you want to pick this one, you can't choose it in plan. You need to come here and choose it. The other option, if you really want to choose, currently you have this one. So if I delete this, it doesn't show me. Oops, sorry. Let's see what's happened. Yep. So it doesn't show me when you redraw it. It doesn't show you that element or joint in the plan because it literally is not in the plan. So you cannot choose this one. If you want to do it, you need to go either in the 3D model, 3D view, or in the elevation. So the next element I want to show you how to draw is line frame element or line object. So line object could be a straight frame or curve frame. I'm not going for cable and tendon because those are non-linear elements. So I show you a straight frame is very straightforward as is saying in the name. So here you can select any section you have. I will show you how to create those sections later and how we can use them, but currently assumed we have just default section type, which is defined by SAP automatically. You can choose if the end connections are pin or continuous. I will explain them in end release later, but pin means you have a pin connection and both and in both directions, and also rotation. But if you want to change them automatically, you can. So continuous is just like a rigid connection at the end. So I will keep it connection, and you can play with local axis. I will explain them later again. I don't want to overwhelm you with heaps of data at the beginning. And I'll talk about this offset normal to the plane. And we come here, for example, let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay, and if I draw one line here, for example, from here to here, or here, here, you can draw it like that. Now I can explain you a little bit about the Snap Tools more to see how you can use this. Before going through that, I'll show you how does it work. So when we say XY plane offset normal, if I put here number 1, that means 1 meter. If I draw a line from here to here, it gives me 1 meter to the left. If I draw it reverse, give me 1 meter to the right. Likewise for X. So if I come here, draw here to here, going to up, but if I draw it reversely, going down. The reason is I'll need to talk about local axis, but the local axis is always along is number 1, and then axis number 2 is here. So it taking the positive number 2 as an offset. So it's a bit, as I said, I don't want to go through all of them, but there is a reason behind that. There is a logic behind that. I will explain it later when I talk about element local axis, which is in module 2. So how we can use these snaps when we have different elements. For example, I want to draw something from midpoint of here. Because I select this one, which is end and midpoint, it gives me the option that I can draw a line from middle of the element or end of the element, because generally at the point, so it's coming right to the point. So I can draw one from mid of here if I become close to any of these ends, it automatically pick up the end of the element. You can see. Yep. So I can draw it from here to here, but because of I didn't deactivate this 1 meter, it drew me 1 meter to the left. So I've changed this one to 0. And then if I want to draw another element, you can see, for example, a midpoint here to midpoint here, I can draw. The other feature you have here is perpendicular. When you use perpendicular, it cannot be picked at the beginning, is always the second option. So if I choose activate this one and come here from the same point coming here, if I come here and just move, it shows me where is the perpendicular. I think it's very close to this, that's why it doesn't show. So if I come from this one here, I can, yep. So this is, oh sorry, I choose intersection. If I choose perpendicular, guys, this is being recorded but somehow is live, so some minor mistakes you can see. Please accept my apologies, but let's move on. So this is a perpendicular. So coming from here to here, it's automatically connected to this frame. Or from here to here is mid, but I move it, is perpendicular. So different snaps are active. If some snaps are very close and you don't want it, while you are here, you can deactivate them. For example, you don't want to have perpendicular. Before clicking and selecting your second joint, you can come here and remove perpendicular. And for example, select intersection. And when you're coming to intersection, you can see currently we don't have any intersected members, so I'll show you. But using whatever snap is activated here. For example, if you remove midpoint here, you cannot choose midpoint again. You have just intersection between the grid and frame or between frames. So I'm coming, for example, selecting this. If you draw an element just crossing the other element like this, that is another intersection for you. So you can pick that one as well. Always when you draw one element, after you're selecting your second joint, automatically that would be your first joint for the next element. If you don't want it, simply right click and then start by left click wherever you want, and you can draw your elements. But if you keep going, it's already there, so you can draw it like that. The other option you have here is curve frame. So in curve frame, you can select 2 points, and then the third one, the new menu coming, and you need to select. What is important in third point is you need to know the orientation of other elements you choose. So you can choose, for example, one somewhere between them, then you can draw the arc. Also, it shows you the number of segments at the corner, and in number of segments you can change it to whatever you want, depends on the geometry you want to create. So roughly I know this is 6, and then we have a longer space, maybe I don't know, 8 meters something, and then 3 meters. So I think this is maybe 5 and 7. So roughly this area is something around, say, 10. So if I choose 10 and 6, so 10 for X and 6 for Y, then I just press OK. You can see it's been drawn like this, and this is one of the joint is somewhere here. So if I, for example, select these two and intentionally put 0, 0, 0, which is this corner, and just press OK, you can see it's coming and just crossing this point. It's not necessarily you have any joint here, because back to the number of segments, because they are equal, but it's crossing this area as you dictated. And the other option you have is selecting the third point. So you can come here, and here you coming and say third point ID. So you need to literally put the third point ID here, And to do this, you need to know the joint or point IDs that I will explain you later. But roughly, this is how Arc can work. And if I want to just show you very briefly about point IDs, which is a bit in advance comparing to those are all point IDs we have, and you can choose any of them when you using that curve frame option. Please play with that. There are different options there, and see if there is any confusion. Let me know if there is anything is not clear. Let me know, then I can discuss about that. I'm going very quickly about two other options remaining. One is for brace and one is for secondary element to wrap up drawing for elements, and then we will leave shell elements or area elements to the next video. So for bracing, you can come here and just click on any span between any grids, and that will draw for you here. You cannot do it in 3D view. What you need to do, you need to find a elevation and then do that. So if I choose in view, for example, XZ elevation, that means X and Z, I'm coming to this view. So I select XZ, and then when I press here, it's coming there. And there are other options here like invert V, which is chevron bracing, or V brace. Also eccentric, that would be just one brace, eccentric back and eccentric front, which is coming like this. And you can do the same here in plan. So when you are in eccentric front, you can do this. So let's go to another level which is clear. I'll quickly tell you about the secondary beams. So we have, sometimes you have a composite section, for example composite beams, and you want to find it. You can draw secondary beams in each panel based on the number of the beams or a space. So if I choose, for example, 5 here and I press here, it gives me 5 beams. And the other option I have is choosing the first and last distance. So if I come here and, for example, choose the first distance 0.5 and press here, it gives me the first one 0.5 from the grid, and then add the rest of the 5 in equal dimensions. So these dimensions are all similar. If I dictate the last one, for example 0.4, I come here and again draw, it gives me 0.4, it gives me 0.5, and the rest is equal. Or you can go for maximum spacing. You can say maximum spacing is 1.2. So if you keep these two the same and put here, it gives you 0.5, it gives you 0.4, and they say what's the rest of the space and what is the closest space between beam to 1.2. It could be 1.1, could be 1.05, or anything else, could be exactly 1.2. But it wouldn't be more than 1.2. Okay guys, this is the first video of our first module, and I will explain you about other features in our next module.